Welcome to this deep dive. We explore interesting ideas from some really insightful sources, trying to make them clear and, well, relevant for you.
Yeah, we know you're someone who loves learning, connecting the dots, so we get straight to the heart of things. No fluff.
Exactly. And today we're diving into Lao Tzu's Tao Te King. It's a really foundational text.
We're using the James Legge translation, specifically the one from Project Gutenberg. It's quite accessible.
And our goal, our sort of mission here is to pull out that timeless wisdom stuff that still speaks to us today about, the world and our place in it.
Right. Practical insights, hopefully without getting too bogged down. So where do we start? The Tao itself.
Let's do that. The very beginning is, well, it's pretty famous, isn't it? Sets the stage immediately.
It really does. The Tao that can be trodden is not the enduring and unchanging Tao. The name that can be named is not the enduring and unchanging name.
Straight away, it tells you, this thing, this Tao. You can't really pin it down with words.
Not fully, no. It's presented as something beyond our everyday concepts. It's the origin, the source of heaven and earth.
But it's also called the mother of all things. That sounds like something knowable, something with a name.
Exactly. And that's the mystery, isn't it? It's both the nameless origin and the named mother that gives birth to everything we can see and name.
So it's like this fundamental reality that's both beyond us and also the very stuff of the world.
Precisely. And how we approach it matters. The text brings up desire.
Yes. Always without desire we must be found. If it's deep mystery we would sound.
Right. But then it says, if desire always within us be, its outer fringe is all that we shall see.
So our constant wanting, our grasping, it kind of clouds our vision. We only see the surface level.
That seems to be the idea, that a quieter state of mind, less driven by desire, allows for a deeper perception, maybe more intuitive.
Okay. And then it talks about opposites, like existence and non-existence.
Yeah, and difficulty and ease, long and short, all these pairs. It says they actually give rise to each other.
Like two sides of the same coin? You can't have one without the other.
Exactly. They aren't really separate things fighting, but complementary aspects of the one reality, interconnected.
Which leads to that idea about the sage, right? The wise person.
Who manages things without doing anything and teaches without the use of speech.
Which sounds impossible. Or maybe just lazy.
Well, no, it's not about laziness. It's more about aligning with the natural flow, like a skilled surfer riding a wave instead of fighting it.
Okay. So intervening skillfully, minimally, letting things unfold.
Yes, trusting the process. And there's that great metaphor, the Tao being like the emptiness inside a pot or a vessel.
Right. The empty space is what makes the pot useful.
Exactly. It's the non-being that allows for function. It's profoundly deep, that emptiness. The text even hints the Tao might have been before God.
Wow. Okay, so that idea of not doing in that specific way,
Yeah.
that connects to Wu Wei, doesn't it? Non-action.
It does, Wu Wei. It's often translated as non-action, but that can be misleading. It's not just sitting around doing nothing.
Right. It's more like what you said earlier, effortless action.
Yeah, or action without forcing. Acting spontaneously, in tune with the situation, rather than from like a rigid plan or ego.
So not imposing your will unnecessarily.
Exactly. The text mentions that heaven and earth act impartially, without trying to be benevolent in a human sense. They just operate according to their nature.
Like the sun shines on everyone, good or bad, no judgment.
Precisely. And the sage tries to emulate that. There's another image, too, the space between heaven and earth, like a bellows.
A bellows? Like for a fire?
It's empty, but it's constantly moving, producing air, and it never gets exhausted. It suggests a kind of dynamic, effortless power.
Okay, I see. And what about the valley spirit and the female mystery? Those sound intriguing.
They are. They point to a different kind of power. The valley is low, receptive. It gathers water naturally. It symbolizes humility, yielding.
And the female principle?
Often seen as representing gentleness, receptivity, endurance. Think of water again. It's soft, it yields, but it can wear away rock.
Right. Water comes up a lot. The highest excellence is like that of water.
It really is the perfect metaphor for the Tao in action. It benefits everything, doesn't it? Doesn't compete, seeks the low places.
That quiet strength. It doesn't strive.
And that leads us directly to the dangers of, well, too much striving, of excess.
Yeah, the text seems quite wary of that. Like, it is better to leave a vessel unfilled than to attempt to carry it when it is full.
It suggests knowing limits, knowing when to stop, trying to keep something constantly sharp, always grinding it.
Eventually, you wear it down to nothing.
Right, or clinging too tightly to wealth or status or honors. It says that invites disaster. There's wisdom in knowing when to withdraw, especially when you've achieved something.
Stepping back from the limelight?
Perhaps not clinging to the success. And remember the wheel analogy.
The spokes connect at the hub.
But it's the empty space in the hub that makes the wheel actually work. Same for a clay pot or the doors and windows in a room.
It's the emptiness, the non-being, that makes it useful. That's a powerful idea.
It really shifts your perspective on what value is. It's not just about the solid stuff.
And it also warns about, like, too much sensory input. Colors blinding the eye, sounds deafening the ear.
Yes, overstimulation. It suggests the sage focuses more on the belly, like fundamental needs, inner substance rather than the eye, which is always chasing the next stimulation, insatiable desires.
And satisfying core needs over endless wants. That feels very relevant today.
Doesn't it? And then there's this tricky bit about favor and disgrace, or honor and calamity, seeing them as sort of similar conditions.
How so? They seem pretty opposite.
Well, the texts, they both stem from having a body, or maybe a strong sense of self, something that could be affected. Like, if you weren't so attached to your self-image, maybe neither praise nor blame would disturb you so much.
So the attachment is the root vulnerability. Makes sense. Okay, so given all this, what qualities or practices does it point towards?
It describes the Tao with these very abstract terms, the equable, the inaudible, the subtle, things you can't quite grasp. Very. And they all blend into the one, this underlying unity. But then it describes the actual masters of the Tao in ancient times. And they sound, well, kind of odd.
How so? What are they like?
The text says they were shrinking, irresolute, grave, evanescent, unpretentious, vacant, even dull.
Definitely not the charismatic leader type we usually think of. Irresolute, dull.
I know. It's challenging. But it suggests a deep humility, maybe? A lack of sharp edges, no need to impress, like they're worn smooth rather than shiny and new.
Interesting. So a focus on inner qualities over outward show.
Seems like it. And a big emphasis on cultivating inner emptiness and stillness. Bring the emptiness to the utmost degree, guard stillness.
Like meditation or contemplation?
Could be interpreted that way.
Yeah.
It's about quieting the internal noise, observing the natural rhythm of things returning to their root or source.
And seeing that cycle, that return, that's wisdom.
That's called intelligence in the text. Understanding this constant, unchanging pattern, it leads to forbearance, acceptance, feeling connected to everything.
It also mentions how rulers were seen in ancient times, how it changed.
Yeah, from being almost unknown to being loved and praised, then feared, then despised, until the best state was when people just felt, we are as we are of ourselves.
Like they didn't even feel they were being ruled. Things just worked.
Exactly, the lightest touch. Which brings us to some of the paradoxes in the text.
Right. Things that seem contradictory at first glance, like saying that when the great Tao declined, that's when things like benevolence and righteousness appeared.
Yeah, it implies those explicit virtues only became necessary because the natural inherent harmony was lost. If everyone was naturally good, you wouldn't need rules about being good.
So the rules are a sign something's already broken.
In a way. It even suggests quite radically that we should renounce conventional wisdom and cleverness sometimes for the people's benefit.
Whoa. Renounce wisdom. That sounds dangerous.
It's not about embracing ignorance, I think. It's more about being wary of rigid intellectual solutions, cleverness for its own sake, maybe hypocrisy that comes with trying too hard to seem virtuous or smart.
Okay. Less about book learning, more about intuitive understanding.
Possibly. There's that line, when we renounce learning, we have no troubles, which is obviously provocative.
Definitely. And what about the sage seeming kind of out of step? While everyone else is busy and satisfied, the sage is described as listless, confused, like a baby who has not yet learned to smile.
It suggests seeing past the surface distractions, maybe? Not being caught up in the everyday hustle and temporary satisfactions that occupy most people. A different perspective.
And then those really paradoxical lines. The partial becomes complete, the crooked straight, the empty full, the worn out new.
Yeah, that's deep. It hints at a transformative process. That accepting imperfection or emptiness or being worn out somehow allows for renewal and completion.
Humility again.
It seems key. The text says the sage embraces the one, and humility is central to that. Also, that speaking less aligns with nature's spontaneity.
Fewer words, more natural action.
And the idea that the soft overcomes the hard, the weak overcomes the strong. Like water, again.
So how does all this apply to, say, governing or leading?
Well, the text says the kingdom, or maybe society, is a spirit-like thing.
Yeah.
You can't just grab it and control it through forceful action. Trying to do things to it often messes it up.
So a ruler guided by the Tao wouldn't use brute force.
Ideally not. They'd assist things to happen naturally. It warns against trying to dominate through military might. Arms are called instruments of evil omen.
Not something a person of the Tao likes to use.
Right. Victory by force isn't seen as beautiful. Calmness and repose are preferred. It emphasizes harmony.
And the Tao itself, it's nameless, but when it acts in the world, it gets names.
Yes, as things unfold, names arise. And knowing when to stop, when things have reached their place, prevents danger. People can find rest in that understanding.
It also talks about knowing yourself versus knowing others.
Knowing others is discernment, sure. But knowing yourself, that's true intelligence. Overcoming others takes strength, but overcoming yourself, that's real power.
Self-mastery.
Exactly. And the great image of the Tao is presented as this ultimate refuge, where the whole world can come for peace without harm.
There are also those lines that sound almost manipulative. Like, to weaken something, you must first strengthen it. To overthrow, first raise up.
Yeah, those are challenging. It's described as subtle intelligence. It might point to understanding the cycles of things rise before they fall, or maybe it's about knowing how to influence things indirectly,
Yeah.
understanding the dynamics at play.
Not necessarily about trickery, but deep understanding of process.
That seems more in line with the overall philosophy.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it circles back to that core idea. The Tao does nothing for the sake of doing it, and yet nothing is left undone.
Everything gets accomplished, but through this effortless, harmonious way.
Wow. It's quite a perspective shift, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, just to recap the big themes we've touched on, there's the Tao itself, mysterious, indescribable.
The power of Wu Wei, that non-striving, effortless action.
The warnings about excess, about forcing things, about clinging,
Yeah, and the importance of inner stillness, emptiness, humility.
and all that paradoxical wisdom, the soft overcoming the hard, emptiness being useful, apparent weakness being strength.
It's a lot to take in, but these ancient ideas,
Yeah.
they really do feel like they offer a different way to navigate our own, often very complex and overwhelming modern lives.
A path to maybe a bit more inner peace, less friction, maybe even more effectiveness in a strange way.
I think that's the potential, yes. Finding that flow.
Okay, so let's leave you, our listener, with a final thought to reflect on, building on all this.
Consider this. In your own life, right now, is there one specific area where you feel like you're pushing really hard? Maybe striving, controlling, forcing an outcome.
Yeah, think about that situation. Now, what might it look like to consciously embrace just a little bit of non-striving there? To step back slightly, release the tight grip, and just observe.
Not necessarily giving up, but trusting the process a bit more. How might letting go of the need to control actually change the dynamic, maybe even lead to a better, more fulfilling result?
Just something to ponder. Take that thought with you this week, maybe experiment gently, and just see what unfolds.